Okay, so I had a couple of requests, not a ton, but a couple, so I'm going to try to do the best I can. This is just the way that I have become comfortable with skinning canines. Uh, People do things differently. The speed skinners and stuff they do, I mean, there's no way I can skin a coyote in 3 minutes. It's not happening. Never will. This is just the way I do it, and I've changed a few things as I've gone. So basically, I have it rigged up to where I can keep one leg free and I can switch them quickly. I just have these little S hooks where I can swap legs out. I keep one leg free, and I always start, and there's always a definite like a color change of fur right here, and I try to follow that line. I usually start right on the inside of this tendon right back here. The holds, I guess, would be their hamstring on here. I try to ride along that. Anytime I try to cut around like this, just hacking into the fur, I end up cutting that tendon and cutting all the meat, and everything starts falling off. This is just a way that I've been able to do it a lot cleaner, I guess. Maybe not faster, but cleaner. So I'm going to show doing just some of the highlights here. I'm not going to show every little part. I'm not going to show doing both legs and everything. So I always take probably more of the leg than I have to. And I'll show you later why I take more of the leg. But I just poke the knife in here, got a nice sharp knife, Havalon, and I just follow right down along that color change. Right up towards the anus, the vent, whatever you want to call it. Now I'm going to take and just slowly skin this around a little bit. I take my time. I'm not a high volume guy. I never will be. I just get around here. Like I said, this is not a speed way of doing coyotes. Not sure if that's still in here. And don't worry, this video, I will not even try to monetize this video. A little tip, don't ever try to monetize a fur handling video. It won't happen. If it does, feel lucky. So for me, this keeps my knife sharper for a long time too. I just get skinned around underneath there a little bit. And I cut the fur from the inside. Hopefully it's getting on camera as good as possible. There, now I don't have any meat hanging off here. The tendon's still intact. Like I said, when I just cut into here, I don't know, for some reason, I guess I'm just not as good at it. This just works out to be a cleaner skin for me. So now I'm going to switch legs over. Eventually here, I'm going to hook this leg up. Okay, so now I got this leg hanging up here. And I'm going to repeat this whole process on this leg. I'm not going to video that though. So now I'm just going to pull down here as far as I can easily. Coyote fur is pretty dang tough, so you can give it a good pull. It's not like red fox fur. You can grab, a lot of times you can grab the leg and the fur and sort of pull it apart. Get your thumb in there. Roll your knuckles, whatever you got to do. Knock the camera over. Just give it a good yank till you get that leg pulled down right there. Okay, so I'm going to shut this camera off. I'm going to do the same thing to this leg, and then I'll show getting around the tail and everything. Okay, so I got both legs skinned out, did them both the same. This is an area where it can be really tough. I mean, if you pull hard, can you rip a coyote fur? I've done it on the fur puller with my brothers, but they're pretty tough fur. But like right in this area, right here, it can be really difficult sometimes. And I quit pulling on this one to show you what you can do if you're having a really hard time pulling right through here. I mean, I pulled it farther than like sometimes like right at the top of the hip. It can be really difficult to pull. So sometimes you might just have to take your knife, just cut gently here and work your way into here and just cut and pull. But this one pulled fairly easily. It pulled right up over the hip. Sometimes I gotta I got to cut there a little bit because it can be really tough, especially if they set around for a long time. This one's still pretty fresh. It's a few hours old. It's been in the trash bag with flea killer and stuff on it. So I just always just take, once I get the legs around, take the vent. I just cut right in the vent and cut straight towards the hip bone. And I cut on both sides like that. And then there's always just a little piece left here. Just poke my knife up under there and just cut towards myself a little bit. That can be dangerous, but now I'm going to try to work my way around here. I'm going to show you just cutting here. I could probably just pull this one and push a steel through here, but sometimes it just helps just to touch that lightly. This is a place where you don't want to put a hole though. This fur is looking nice and white though. The hide is. And you can just keep working it down that way. Like I said, I could pull this one if I had to. Now this is where something like this comes in handy. Whatever you want to call it, a steel. This is basically an old torque wrench, I think, that broke. So I just ground the end down. This is good for poking through places like shoulders or like right here. The back of the tail, base of the tail. Pull that through and then you can just use your body weight, push that down some. Right through here there's always a lot of stuff holding on. It can be tough. This is where you can put your body weight to it. Give it a yank. Cut a little bit if you have to, but the less you cut, the better sometimes, because you don't want to put a hole right there. I'm going to start splitting this tail a little bit. This can be hard to do from a distance. Once you get it down to where you think you can pull it, take a tail stripper. And I saw Coffee, he did a little clip where you can, if you don't have a tail stripper, if you lose it or something, you can use a pair of pliers. That's a good tip. That was about the limit there. Pull the tailbone out. You want it completely out. And this little gadget, tail, not a tail stripper, but a tail opener, whatever. I don't know what it's called actually. Hook it in the tail. I've done a lot of critters with that. That's the only one I've ever owned. Cheapest one they had. So now I'm going to turn it around here. This is the male. This is an easier place than the back of it to get through. Get your fingers worked through here. I'm going to cut right between the testicles and the bone. I'll rip the penis out later. Basically, I'm going to yank this down. I'm not going to work on it too long. Yo, I'm going to lock my camera down again. I'm going to reposition this. Okay, so I'm going to pull this down to where it gets difficult to pull. And I built a skinning machine for a reason. Now here's one of the things I'm going to use it. My explanation is going to take longer than actually doing this. It seems like it takes a long time. Now this is a tip I got from one of my viewers. This is one of the things I've changed up. Now that I got my skinning machine, and if you ever build a skinning machine, this is my suggestion. Other people might have different suggestions, but this is my suggestion. Try to build it on the horizontal as much as possible. Mine's at an angle now. I initially built it to pull straight up and down. Turned out that wasn't enough room to do coyotes. And I just needed more room. So I had to put it at an angle. So I'm going to hook my coyote way down there at an angle. It's about 12 foot total distance here. I'm going to hook it up down there, but I'm going to invert the coyote so the fur is up top, and you'll see it when I get it rolling here. The fur is going to be up here, and the body's down there. So any blood that starts or anything like that, if you make a nick and get blood rolling, it's going to roll down. Plus, a lot of the blood that's in the critter and its lungs and everything, it's going to settle down instead of like running down its head and everything. So it way reduces the blood issues. So I'm going to get this thing inverted, and then we'll continue on. Okay, so here's like a side view of how my skinning machine's set up. Like I said, I inverted everything, and for me, this doesn't take too long. This saves a lot of time for me and a lot of issues. Like when I first started using the skinning machine, I kept the animal was up here and this hide was down there, and if I nicked something, the blood would still run down there. So now the chest cavity is up higher. When I start pulling it, the blood's going to want to flow back that way. Even if I nick the animal, the blood's going to fall down away from the fur, and I'll get less blood on the fur. Like I said, this one I shot, so you're going to see some bullet holes coming up here. So I'm going to try to do the best I can with keeping everything in camera. Yeah, so if you try to do your own pulling machine, here's another thing. When you start pulling it up, make sure these front legs are getting tucked up in here. Some people say about lopping these off. I just learned to keep them pulled up so that the fur starts coming up over it. I'm going to give a little tug here. Starting to come. Make sure the head's getting up in there. The shoulder. Pick that up a little bit. Give it a little tug. Now I'm just going to give it a slight cut here to ease up on stuff. Here's a place that's easy to cut sometimes, right here on the underbelly. So I always cut it back a little bit farther than I think I should there. Give it a little tug with the cord. Slight bit of cutting. Another slight pull. Now, if I didn't have that thing inverted, I guarantee you there'd be blood flying out of there, coming down all over the place here. Like I said, once you get your thing here, you can actually just push down on a little bit sometimes. This is where I ripped my brother's. I got a little too aggressive, I guess. A little bit of cutting. Just keep pulling a little bit, cutting a little bit, pulling a little bit, cutting a little bit. So like right here, you can see where the fur ends right here. Just a light cut. I switch knives when I do this because this thing is resharpenable. Again, right through here. The same principle would hold if you are skinning by hand. You pull as much as you can, cut a little bit. Right here is where the shoulder is going to start, where I could get my steel through here and pull some. I'm going to give just an extra little tug. See if I can get this in here. If the camera's shaking, it's because it's on a piece of cardboard and I keep stepping on it. My apologies. Okay, so right here is like the armpit or whatever you want to call it. The armpit's up underneath here, but I'm going to shove this thing through here. I'm just going to push down. I'm sure I am. Push down, get that. I'll eventually cut these off to a shorter length. This just helps when I'm fleshing, having a long leg. That's way longer than what you need. Pull that through. Now I'm going to shove my steel through that side. I'm just going to push down again. Spin that thing around here. Just cut around here. Anytime you can cut from the hide side instead of through the fur, your knife, it'll dull your knife less. There we go. Like both of these will get cut off about to here eventually. And I'm going to start working up around the head and ears. Whoa. They call this water head or something from being in the cable restraint. And with this thing, I just keep going up the ears about as far as I can. With a fox, I haven't found this to be easy yet with a coyote, putting a steel up under here, up under the ear cartilage. So basically, like I pull the cartilage completely out of the ears. So on coyotes, I pretty much, and here I get a little more aggressive because if you make a hole in the head, it's not a big issue really. But most auction houses that I know of, they want that cartilage out of the ears pretty much. So I just skin up the back side of it as far as I can, and I still cut the whole ear cartilage out of here. Like a fox, I can get a steel up through here and rip that out. This is for me, it's a pain trying to do that with a coyote. So I cut right here. Cut that ear butt out. And then when I get to fleshing, I'll rip that whole thing out of there. And all that stuff will be gone. And like right here, I can just push down on that thing a little bit. Get close to the eyes, start getting to the eyes here. Now if you use a Havalon knife, or Havalon, whatever, some of those replaceable blade knives, don't use them on here. You'll dull that blade in a second. This is just an old fleshing, or an old fillet knife I use a lot. Really easy to resharpen. I just cut straight down into the eyes until they start popping through here. Now right on the corner of the jaws, there's some big veins that run through here. Really easy to cut and stuff. This is another place that's really nice to have this inverted. Right there I just cut one. But the blood is running down the animal, not on the fur. You can see right here where he was chewing on that cable. And that cable was not, he was chewing enough. He was chewing on that baby, guaranteed. And that cable was not frayed at all. Just keep cutting a little bit, pulling a little bit. Once you cut the bottom lip, once you get to the bottom lip where you can get a knife through there, that bottom lip's going to go anyways. When you cut that, things usually get a little bit easier. You can just push that down. Yeah, so a couple places to be real careful cutting. Right here, there's some big veins that come here. Underneath here, the carotid arteries and stuff, whatever. You cut them and it's going to be a mess if you have your coyote in the opposite direction what this one is. Get most of the nose cartilage out of there. Cut the nose off. And that's a wrap. Coyote skinned. Now here's one of the reasons I skin the back legs as far as I do. I'll eventually cut them off again. I want my coyotes, I want any fur to look as good as possible. Whenever I clamp that on there, it always puts a pretty good burn mark there. So I'll cut that off right above the burn mark and that'll be gone. So that's why I cut a whole bunch there. Turn this thing inside out. I mean inside out, right side out. I'm gonna see how much blood's on the fur, whether I gotta wash it or not. This is why I don't like shooting them a lot. Sometimes just got to. I'm gonna have to wash this thing a little bit. But yeah, so there we go. It's not horrible, not too bad. I might just rub some borax in it and brush it out the best I can. I mean, it's not a ton of blood, really. I'm just going to brush it out the best I can. Pretty decent fur. Pretty decent fur for here. Nice and thick. So, alrighty. That'll conclude this video. If you want to see any more types of fur handling videos or anything, fleshing or anything, I've done a whole raccoon video complete thing. I'll put a little link up here for the raccoon video. But yeah, so happy with this guy and still getting a couple critters in the shed. Thanks for watching, everybody. Appreciate it, and I hope you all have a blessed day.